morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and I've got a detailed weather forecast update coming your way for Tuesday the 11th of November, Remembrance Day 2025. We've got some thunderstorms on the forecast this weekend once again through southeast Queensland and a tropical low that's going to bring a whole load of rainfall to northwestern Australia and a whole lot more with the systems making the news as well. So all the details on those plus more coming up in today's weather forecast update. But let's start things off over in southeastern Queensland where a much cooler and calmer picture is being painted for the next couple of days before some gnarly severe thunderstorms return as we get later on into this week. So what's going to be driving this thunderstorm outbreak is a big northwest cloud band that's going to begin to build through Thursday and Friday over in towards central Australia. And this is where we've got a lot of moisture coming out of the tropics here. And it is actually going to be driven by that tropical low that's going to be well offshore from Western Australia at this point in time. But it all ties into the weather scene with this moisture that's going to be pushing through central Australia and then in towards Queensland through Thursday. And then if we push things forward out towards Friday, you can see a couple of thunderstorms are beginning to develop. Or Thursday, we already see these thunderstorms developing in a pretty small capacity through central Queensland, north of Charleville, through Augathella up towards Alpha and Longreach. But Friday will be a bit of a bigger thunderstorm day through parts of Queensland, particularly in towards central Queensland around the Roma and the Charleville area, again up towards the Longreach area. But the new forecast modelling has now just came out with a bunch of thunderstorms moving in towards southeastern and southern Queensland. So this will include the Brisbane area and the Gold Coast, and also a couple of good thunderstorms expected around the Toowoomba and the Warwick area, and the strongest thunderstorms expected between Toowoomba out to about Roma along this line here north of the Queensland-New South Wales border, and not so much into the Brisbane city area. And this is on Friday before the big thunderstorm day once again looks like it's going to be on this weekend. Bosses weather set to continue for another weekend across Queensland where we've got weekend washouts followed by a week of finer and sunnier conditions, but Saturday is expected to bring a pretty gnarly severe thunderstorm outbreak. Definitely very typical for this time of year, but some strong thunderstorms expected once again between the southeast corner of Queensland out inland to about Roma, and then once again around Roma and inland through Charleville and right out towards western Queensland into the Channel Country and into the Gulf Country as well. Big outback thunderstorms expected all through here, and then our regular severe thunderstorm outbreak with our pulse thunderstorms, our squall lines, our multicellular storms, and even a few supercells forecast in this part of Queensland here. Saturday is expected to be a very big day for thunderstorms through much of Queensland and also through pockets of northeast New South Wales. We've got some very healthy conditions coming through on Saturday afternoon, including that warm and moist air that's going to be coming off the Coral Sea. We've got this dry line that's going to be developing a lot further inland than normal as well, so that means that Brisbane and the Gold Coast are at a lower chance of seeing high-end severe thunderstorm stuff, but nevertheless we've still got this dry air that's going to be pushing in from the west, and that low pressure trough is going to be the catalyst for this severe thunderstorm activity. And not to mention the fact that we've got some pretty decent convective available potential energy values now. They're really getting a lot better now in the latest forecast modelling here through here into the northeast of New South Wales and just outside of Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Some very healthy convective available potential energy values are beginning to develop up around the 2000 mark, and again if we cross-reference that with an atmospheric sounding as well, you can see we've got a bit of a dry slot in the 500 HPA range just outside of Brisbane. So all in all, the atmosphere is now becoming very conducive for some severe thunderstorm activity through southern Queensland, outside of Brisbane, into the Granite Belt and Darling Downs, and that will obviously translate to a few thunderstorms as well into the Ipswich and then eventually into the Brisbane area. But again, considering that this dry line, very similar to the outbreak that we had on November 1st, the dry line is a lot further inland compared to where we do normally see for these severe thunderstorm outbreaks, particularly at this time of the year. It means thunderstorms are going to develop out in this part of more central Queensland, and then they've got a long way to track before they get themselves up into the Brisbane or the Sunshine Coast area, which means they're likely to be a lot weaker and a lot less severe by the time they get themselves into those locations. And you can see that as a convective available potential energy line here, where that line between the higher values here towards the north of this line and the lesser to nil values towards the south of this line here, that's where this dry line is, which is where those thunderstorms begin to develop from. Great values up and towards northwestern Queensland as well, expecting a cracker outbreak there. But this is all part of a very wet picture that's beginning to be painted for Queensland around this weekend. So Friday, Saturday and Sunday is forecast to bring some pretty significant rainfall accumulations, particularly to parts of the Granite Belt and the Darling Downs. You can see here some rainfall accumulations outside of Brisbane, forecast to be approaching the 100mm mark, and depending on what thunderstorms come through, we may be seeing falls up around the 150mm mark. Just a lot of thunderstorms expected on Saturday, and then that's going to tend to steady rainfall at times through Saturday night and into Sunday morning, again with a lot more thunderstorms still yet to follow through Saturday night into Sunday morning. So again, another very extensive outbreak of severe thunderstorms and a persistent outbreak of severe thunderstorms thunderstorms expected Saturday into Sunday, and then steady rain kicking up on Sunday morning, and that's going to ease off pretty quickly through Sunday afternoon and evening, pulling away from Queensland through Sunday night into Monday morning, with a few showers still expected here and there through early Monday morning along the Capricornia coastline. So the heaviest rainfall is going to be, as mentioned, into the Granite Belt and the Darling Downs, but we will also see some moderate rainfall accumulations anywhere basically within this red circle here, and that will come from the shower and the thunderstorms that are going to come through on Saturday night into Sunday and then into early Monday morning, with the heaviest falls, as mentioned, in this little pocket here, but also falls around the 50 to 75 millimetre mark now possible along the Capricornia coastline, depending on how persistent the rainfall is up there, which is very good to see because a lot of these places in desperate need of rainfall. You can see here just along Fraser Island on the Fraser coast here, 70 millimetres on the forecast. Very, very healthy rainfall accumulation. They'll take that with open arms, that's for sure. So the key message is Saturday is now looking stormy. This is going to carry over into late Saturday night into early Sunday morning, and some big thunderstorms are now very much expected into the Granite Belt and the Darling Downs in what is going to be a pretty extensive outbreak of severe thunderstorms fueled by a lot of energy and just a very persistent driver for these thunderstorms. A very slow moving low pressure system is going to cross over this part of Queensland. That's going to really make these thunderstorms very, very slow moving in nature. And also, if you have a look at those or the 7 to 500 millibar winds, you can see they're not too crazy. They're around that 30 knot mark. So these thunderstorms are not going to be getting along very fast at all. 30 knot in the 5 to 700 millibar level in the atmosphere means that these thunderstorms are going to be moving in that easterly direction at about 30 knots ish, give or take. So not very fast moving, definitely not very typical at this time of the year through Queensland. This is again another garden variety severe thunderstorm outbreak, but one that is expected to cause more problems than most, considering it is going to be so persistent. Lots of hail, lots of damaging winds, lots of heavy rainfall. Well, heavy rainfall definitely is one factor that is very much expected. We've got quite a moist environment for these thunderstorms, but yeah, large and potentially giant hailstones, particularly early in the afternoon on Saturday. Now a possibility outside of southeast Queensland towards the west of Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Right now it's a bit early to say for sure what we're expecting in Brisbane and the Gold Coast, but it isn't looking as bad for either location, considering again that dry line a lot further inland. Those thunderstorms have got a lot of ground to cover before they get themselves up into the Brisbane or the Gold Coast area. And just on this forecast modelling here, it looks like the worst of these thunderstorms do develop further inland. They could clip Brisbane, but it looks like the Gold Coast is going to be kind of on that less severe side of things, if that does make sense. Forecast can still change, so we will keep a close eye on this situation here, and I'll have further updates in a detailed forecast update tomorrow and twice daily updates beginning at the latest tomorrow. They may begin later tonight if we get new information coming to light in regards to this thunderstorm outbreak, but definitely again another interesting one. A lot of moisture surging in through parts of central Australia and then pushing in towards eastern Australia. It is a very, very wet time, that's for sure. And pushing things forward, we may have a rainfall event as well through parts of New South Wales around the 20th of November onwards. Some significant rainfall accumulations are now on the forecast through parts of coastal New South Wales, and this will again come from another northwest cloud band that's expected to be flung in from the very strongly negative Indian Ocean dipole that we're seeing right now, and this could translate to a bit of decent rainfall accumulations from a low pressure system along the northeast coast of New South Wales, and that could also translate to some decent falls in towards southeast Queensland as well. We've been saying that around the 20th of November is going to be a wet period. We're going to be talking about this uptick in rainfall through parts of New South Wales around the 20th of November. Details are still very, very murky. We don't know what exactly is going to happen or where the heaviest falls are going to develop, but we expect a low pressure system to originate somewhere in the central parts of Western Australia, spike a whole bunch of thunderstorms like we're seeing today and tomorrow through parts of WA and the Northern Territory, and then this low pressure system to track towards the southeast into New South Wales, where it will then wrap up a lot of moisture and dump that across the central New South Wales coastline, and that rainfall could also make it as far down as the Gippsland coastline into Victoria as well. Now, the most significant rainfall accumulations are highly dependent on where this low pressure system moves, north or south of this low pressure system, wherever that rainfall develops, very much dependent on where this heaviest rainfall develops. For this to become a southeast Queensland problem, we would need this low pressure system to develop somewhere in the central Northern Territory and track in this southeasterly direction here along with the jet. That's not likely to be what happens. Precedence tells me that that is a very unlikely scenario right now. What's more likely to happen is this low pressure system developing in towards Western Australia, and as long as that happens, the rainfall will be New South Wales focused. So some good falls are expected nonetheless. With this low pressure system that does develop, we will see some very good rainfall accumulations, and you can see around the Coffs Harbour area on the eastern layer forecast, which has this low pressure system developing in the central parts of WA, up to 300 millimetres is now in the forecast here, and this will fall in a pretty short period of time, and that will naturally bring a pretty significant flooding risk. The GFS forecast model still has a few discrepancies that need to be outlined, but we could be talking about some decent rainfall accumulations as well. Around the Coffs Harbour area, which is where the GFS is also calling for the heaviest rainfall accumulations, accumulations getting close to 100 millimeters there, but the GFS also doesn't have a full-blown large-scale low-pressure system developing at this point in time, just kind of a weak low-pressure trough developing along the coastline, which in contrast to what the European forecast has some pretty significant rainfall and thunderstorm activity developing around this low-pressure system as it continues to wrap itself up. But yes, some very significant rainfall accumulations will of course be a possibility if a low-pressure system does develop, and now we're very much looking out for where and when it is going to develop, which is where the worst this rainfall is going to eventually end up being. Interesting times lay ahead. The 20th is definitely looking like it's going to be a bit of a wet period, and where this moisture begins surging in is where this rainfall is going to begin to develop, or will manipulate where this rainfall is going to begin to develop. I'll get to the tropical low situation over into the northwest of WA as well, but we do have some pretty significant rainfall up into towards the Cape York Peninsula as well, and this translates to heavy rainfall expected through parts of northwestern Northern Territory and the northeastern Northern Territory as well through the top end. Basically, we've got some heavy falls coming out of the east as this kind of shower trade flow type thing begins to intensify, and this bringing heavy rainfall at times through parts of the Cape York Peninsula. And you can see pretty much anywhere towards the north of Cooktown is expecting falls in excess of 100 millimeters, potentially pushing closer to 200 millimeters up around Thursday Island and Horn Island. Significant rainfall accumulations, they're no stranger to these at this time of the year. Rainfall does begin to typically pipe up, but it could also mean if some of these showers or rainfall events trail a little bit further south compared to where the forecast has them, that the Daintree rainforest and the Cassowary coast here and here may pick up some relatively significant rainfall accumulations. And whilst nothing crazy is on the forecast right now, we may be seeing isolated rainfall accumulations pushing close to 100 millimeters in a few spots on the Cassowary and getting closer to 150 millimeters onto the Daintree rainforest. There's nothing in the way of significant rainfall for the Cairns or the Townsville area, further 25 millimeters on both location, and then the rainfall begins to drop off south of Guru, and you can see Mackay through the Whitsundays, Bowen, Proserpine down towards Brockhampton. Rainfall accumulations are a lot lighter as the central parts of the Coral Sea remain a lot drier there. This will also translate to more thunderstorm activity through the Northern Territory. We're seeing thunderstorms on a very persistent basis in the afternoon and the evening now, as you would expect for the Northern Territory. A few days lull throughout the next couple of days, but they will return in a pretty dramatic fashion as we get out towards this weekend, and much more thunderstorm activity is expected throughout the 15th to the 20th of November, when conditions will then calm down for a good couple of days through the Northern Territory after about the 19th or the 20th of November. Now, that tropical low that's going to push in towards the northwest of Western Australia, we could be looking at some potentially significant rainfall accumulations in a few spots, but for the most part, this low pressure system is meant to hug Indonesia very closely, and considering that we still have some very high levels of wind shear as this jet stream continues to build here, we're expecting these thunderstorms and any organised thunderstorm activity to be ripped apart by the time it gets itself towards the northwest coast of WA. Now, we've been talking about thunderstorms on this channel a lot, so normally you'll hear me say high wind shear values are very, very favourable, but for tropical lows and tropical cyclones, which are organised clusters of thunderstorms, high levels of wind shear very, very unfavourable and hostile towards that. So wind shear will rip this tropical low apart before it gets itself towards the West Australian coastline, and we're likely to see some pretty minimal rainfall accumulations now compared to where the forecast was sitting a week ago. But still, through parts of the Kimberley region, major forecast modelling is now suggesting at least 100, if not closer to 150 millimetres, with the heaviest rainfall accumulations developing north of Derby up to Columbaroo, very, very remote part of the Kimberley region, and in fact the bigger population centres, and I use that term very loosely, Broome with about 20,000 people expecting close to about 20 millimetres of rainfall, and most of that will come in 1 or 2 days from thunderstorms around the 15th, and then Fitzroy Crossing, Kununurra, Wyndham, Columbaroo, all looking at about 25 to 50 millimetres depending on what thunderstorms develop in this area. But the heaviest falls will be along that northwest coast into the Kimberley region. And that wacky forecast that the GFS was coming out with yesterday that we've talked about on the Facebook page already today has been completely killed off now in the forecast model. So you can see that there is now no massive tropical cyclone, severe tropical cyclone into the Gulf of Carpentaria. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, we had a tropical cyclone move in this line here, tracked over Kansas Category 1 and moved into the Gulf of Carpentaria and made a landfall on the Cape York Peninsula as you wouldn't believe it, a Category 4 strength severe tropical cyclone, which would make it a record-breaking November system. And it is the silly season for the GFS, so it's those type of model runs we need to be looking out for, just to make sure that we're not getting caught up in any kind of fake news stuff from the GFS forecast model. But that's going to do it for today's weather forecast update. If you have enjoyed it, then please do consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already as well. Massively appreciated to all of the new channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. Could not run the show without them, and their support is, as always, massively appreciated. That's going to do it for me today. A special shout out. We've already done the special shout out. Go and check out the Facebook page as well. Been a bit of a sleepless couple of weeks here. Still catching up on a bit of sleep. But that's going to be all for me today, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye.